Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I speak in support of H.Res. 1273, and I urge the committee to report the resolution to the full House favorably. Not only am I a physician, I am also a former director of the Iowa Department of Public Health, and I have a master's in education. Mr. Chairman, students have suffered since the onset of COVID-19, and much of their suffering was a result of deliberate choices by adults to look out for adults' own interests at the expense of children. I argued this point all the way back to April of 2020. The cost of those choices has been clear for a long time, but it came into even sharper focus this past summer with articles by the New York Times and others. The Department of Education recently released data on September 1st showing that reading and math scores for 9-year-olds declined over the course of the pandemic. Average scores in 2022 declined 5 points in reading and 7 points in math compared to 2020. This is the largest average score decline in reading since 1990 and the first ever decline in math. Other studies have shown long-term negative consequences of these declines. Using data from a 2021 NWE report, Harvard Center for Education Policy Research, those might be experts, estimated such losses would represent $43,800 loss in expected lifetime earnings for each individual student affected. When multiplied by roughly 50 million students enrolled in public schools, that represents about $2 trillion in potential earning losses. Mr. Chairman, the worst part is that none of this is a surprise. We were warned from the very beginning, I was one of those, of the negative consequences that would come from prolonged school closures. We were also warned with evidence that those closures weren't necessary. And we heard from parents at 3 different hearings about the devastating impacts of school closures and their effect on children. And yet the Democrats and their allies didn't seem to care. They didn't listen to the science. They weren't focused first and foremost on the needs of school. And the science showed that in Europe, schools were open. States, such as my state in Iowa, had opened schools in August of 2020 to in-person learning. Mr. Chairman, we know that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention colluded with Randy Reingarten and the American Federation of Teachers on the school reopening guidance that was originally issued soon after the Biden administration took office. We know that collusion had the effect of keeping thousands of schools closed and millions of students stuck at home, worsening the academic and mental health crisis we now face. H.Res. 1273 gives us a chance to make things right. We know that there was collusion between the AFT and the CDC, but the Biden administration has never come fully clean about who was involved in the collusion and the level of influence wielded by the teachers' union. Passage of this resolution will send a clear signal that the House of Representatives expects full transparency from the administration to aid in our oversight duties. We have a responsibility to look into the administration's decisions that have harmed so many students. And let me also remind this committee that we're not only talking about learning loss, we're also talking about the number of youth suicides that forced the Nevada school system to open its schools to in-person learning. Republicans fought for students throughout the pandemic. 5 times during debate on the American Rescue Plan, committee Republicans offered proposals to ensure school districts accepting federal money would keep their doors open or provide parents alternatives and to provide mental health coverage. Unfortunately, each time Democrats opposed our efforts. This resolution gives our Democrat colleagues a chance to begin making things right by joining us and understanding what happened in the administration that led to these decisions. I urge my colleagues to join Republicans in voting to report this resolution favorably, and I yield back.